Welcome to the Yap session. Most lifters, honest to God, will not bench 405 pounds for a variety of reasons. And it's honestly not because they're physically incapable of it, but it's because of the way they train and the mistakes they make along the way. I am totally riding on the coattails of my last video, which is my best performing one yet. Those are just 5 random tips, so go and watch that video as well. But honestly, instead of telling you how to bench 405, I'm gonna flip that. Let's reverse engineer this and talk about all the mistakes and the ways you could screw up your path to a 405 bench press or whatever your PR is. Maybe that's 315 or even 225. Fix these mistakes and you are greatly going to increase your chances of hitting 405 pounds on bench. And stick to the end because the last one is the one I believe almost everybody gets wrong. This is basically a roadmap of what not to do. Let's blow up the plan. The first thing that could go wrong is your training doesn't match your goal. This one seems pretty obvious, but I'm so surprised how many lifters train in a way that isn't conducive to their goals. And this takes form with a couple different ways. Number one is you see a lot of strong people that will forever train like a beginner. They run the same 2 to 3 programs for years. They found a free program on Reddit, or they're running a PPL or something like that. And their goals have shifted from fitness and bodybuilding over into increasing your 1 rep max and powerlifting. But those programs are meant for beginners and people just kind of getting into it. They're not strength specific. So you're never going to be progressing intensity in a way that really matters. And you're going to be avoiding heavy weight and you're scared to get hurt, or you're just doing a lot of volume forever without ever touching really heavy weight. And then suddenly you try to PR on a 1 rep max, and of course you're not ready for it. At some point your training has to evolve with your goal. I'd say that's a very common mistake I see with intermediate lifters that have been in the gym for a couple years and now they're benching 225 or even 250, but they just can't seem to break into 315 and beyond. It's because, honestly, God, and I said this in my last video, that your programming doesn't matter as much. While I believe that is true, your training strategy overall needs to evolve as your goals do. I'm not surprised you're not hitting 405. You should be throwing in heavier singles, doing heavy doubles, heavy triples, playing around with cutting volume and increasing intensity. And if you're not really sure how to transition your programming strategies from intermediate to advanced, check out my How to Program for Yourself video, or hit me up. My socials are down below. I'd be happy to coach you. In the same vein of your training not matching your goals, the second thing I see a lot of intermediate lifters do is they try to do everything all at once. And what I mean by this is they can't really decide what kind of training or goals they have. I see this a lot with hybrid athletes, and I am not against hybrid athletes at all. In fact, in some ways I consider myself one, because I'll occasionally play a season of rugby and then I'll go and, do some powerlifting again. But I think if you are like a powerlifter that is really afraid to let go of, some of the cardio gains that you've made, or some of the other exercises like clean and jerks, and I struggle with this too. It's like an identity crisis, right? Like, I want to do powerlifting. Do I want to do this? But then you kind of have to do both of them. Like I said, I have nothing against wanting to be like a hybrid athlete. In some ways, I probably should be doing a lot more cardio. But you also have to understand that for the sport of powerlifting, and I think strength training in general, is that there are recovery trade-offs. If you go and bench heavy and then you go and run 2-3 miles, that recovery from those 2-3 miles could bleed into the recovery of your bench press. So I think while you can slowly increase everything all at once, you have to also recognize that, like, okay, if you want to get a better mile time, then your strength training could still get better. It may get worse for a little bit, but you're putting it on the back burner. So it's still warming up. It's still getting better slowly, but maybe you're never going to hit those strength goals you've been thinking of. I want to bench 405 one day. So I guess my advice would be just understand that there's a trade-off to hybrid training and kind of combining cardio and strength training. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a season to, like, okay, these next 4 months, I want to prep for competition or prep for a 405 pound bench press, and I'm going to do a little less of my hybrid training, and just, instead of 50-50, maybe it's like 80-20. And then as you get closer to your PR day, it's like 90-10. That way you're still kind of maintaining, your cardio on the back burner, but now you're really prioritizing pushing that heavy rep. And then by the time you're done with that, you'll probably be burned out of that and ready to do more of your hybrid training again. And if you're really struggling with your identity crisis, just ask yourself, are you training to just work out, or are you training to get a big bench? Point number 2 is something I've struggled with a lot. Point 2 is that you may not be managing your fatigue, you're just accumulating it. What I mean by this is what I see in a lot of beginner to intermediates. Instead of them never touching heavy weight, maybe they're just maxing out too often. They're jumping volume too quickly. They're always training near failure. Not just RPE 8, but like RPE 9.5, like 0 reps in reserve every set and just never pulling back. Really, what I mean is you need solid fatigue and load management. If you're one of those beginner lifters trying to get into advanced or intermediate trying to get into advanced, fatigue and load management really needs to be at your forefront. So that kind of goes into the hybrid training I was talking about. But also, if you're just strength training, you need to understand you shouldn't progress too quickly and you need to take your recovery into consideration. And activities you do outside of the gym bleed into your recovery as well. And this is something I've struggled with, is like this, there's this life stress layer. So I will be going really good in the gym, but then I'll have like work stress and relationship problems, both like family and personal or whatever. Understand that your fatigue isn't just like what you do in the gym, but it's the cumulative effect of everything. So when work is really rough and I'm having arguments or personal problems, those steady cortisol drips really affect my performance in the gym. So even if I'm training really hard and eating well and doing everything I can, the numbers just don't seem to be progressing. So what I'm asking of you is to just be mindful of that and understand that your fatigue and load management crosses over from personal to also in the gym. So the fix for this is to continue to have an adaptive mindset. Good lifters don't force the program to work. They adjust when life changes. And I think that's totally okay. The idea is to never stop training, but maybe to reduce frequency if needed. Because when you don't manage your fatigue and load management, that's where risk of injury starts to jump up pretty significantly. To me, and I have a whole video about risk management and pain in the gym, but injury happens to me way more often, not because my form was wrong, it's because I was progressing too quickly, pushing myself just a little too hard. And that can be a weird self-feeding cycle, right? I have all these life stressors and I want to get rid of them and use the gym as therapy. So then I push really, really hard in the gym. But because of these life stressors, now I'm not really eating or sleeping well and I have anxiety. So I'm pushing even harder in the gym so that I can like feel better, right? To break that cycle, I would say the people that bench 405 and beyond typically have ways of managing those life stressors, but also adapting their training to that. Sometimes you can't just shove a square block in a round hole. You have to adapt your programming and adapt your lifestyle. Sometimes that means I've gone from 5 days a week of training down to 3, down to even 2 when life is really rough. But the idea is, all right, if I'm going to the gym, then I'm still hitting like a heavy single and some back down sets for squat, bench, and deadlift. That way, at least I know I'm kind of maintaining. If any of this is resonating with you and you're chasing a big bench right now, maybe 405 pounds, hit that subscribe button. I talk about bench press, mindset, programming, cues, technique, accessories, all that fun stuff that's gonna make you bench really big numbers. Check out the playlist below and please give me a subscribe. I'm just a small channel. I don't really make any money off of this, but I'm having a lot of fun communicating with you guys and learning the struggles you guys are having and helping you out. Point 3 is, I'd say the third mistake a lot of lifters make that are chasing 405 pounds is they stop learning way too early. Now, maybe you're not too bad because you're watching this video and you want to learn, but I've personally done this at every stage in my bench press progression. When I benched 225, I don't know, 8 years ago for the first time, I thought, I've got it figured out. I am the bench press god. Nobody can teach me anything more and I can just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I got cocky, right? So then all my friends that were barely benching 135 and they weighed $120, they're like, oh my God, he's got it figured out. And that feeds the cockiness and the ego. And suddenly I just feel like my way of training is the best because I figured it out. And then, you get humbled when you see somebody bigger than you, or you see somebody smaller than you benching more weight. And you're like, maybe I have a little bit more to learn. Or one of your friends starts catching up and you're like, oh man, I need to train a little bit harder. Not realizing that maybe I didn't have anything figured out. I was just training longer than they did. I had more cumulative sessions under my belt. And then the same thing when I hit 315, I'm like, I'm the bench press god. All bow down to me. I've figured it out. So far, I have the strongest bench of anybody in my bloodline. And then one thing I learned is even though I had told myself that's as strong as I'll ever need to be. And now I'm just going to maintain because it was really hard to get there. As the years go by, you just keep getting stronger, right? So you hit a PR and you just keep getting training sessions under your belt. As long as you're pushing hard, you're going to get stronger. So many times I would become like a student of the iron, hit a PR, and then just like think like I had it figured out and there's nothing else I need to learn. And it wasn't until I hit 405 for that first time, I started to realize, wow, this is weight I never thought I could hit, like ever. I kind of hit it on a whim, just a random PR testing day. And that's when I started to be like, maybe I could do like powerlifting, right? I hadn't even competed before I hit 405 on bench press. But I was like, okay, I'm starting to, like, I was the strongest guy at Crunch Fitness at that point, just objectively. I sound cocky as hell saying that, but like nobody else was doing that kind of weight. And that's when I started looking into like powerlifting and powerlifting coaching. And I realized I don't know anything. All I have is just time in the gym, really. I'd learned some things, right? I could teach somebody really brand new to bench press, the things I had learned. But half of those things that I taught them, I've changed myself by the time I've been hitting 485 now and on my path to 500. So I want you to take a humility mindset and just always be a student of the iron. You hit 315, you hit 350, you hit 365. Stop thinking you've got it all figured out because you don't. Almost none of us do. There's always going to be somebody that is 100 pounds less than you, unless you're like already 180. But if you're a big guy like me, like I'm 265 right now, 5'9", because everybody seems to ask in the comments. There's always a dude that weighs like 80 to 100 pounds less than me that's benching as much as I am, or has a bigger total than I do. And I don't care if they're natty or not. It's humbling, right? And it always proves to show I have way more to learn. If you're interested in learning more, definitely check out my bench press playlist linked down below. If you stop learning, you stop progressing. The best lifters are always stacking all these small improvements over time, and those cumulatively help you get into more advanced weight like 405 and beyond. Point number 4 that I see a lot of intermediates do, and this kind of ties into everything I've said before, is that you don't spend enough time with heavy weight. What I mean is, you're aiming for 405 pounds, you need to spend more time closer to that weight. If you're not hitting something in the 300s at least every week, you're wasting some time. I understand periodization. I have a whole video on periodization, going from like less specific to more specific over time. I think it's totally appropriate to have like these volume and strength training blocks where you're not really testing your 1 rep max until your peaking block, right? But what I mean is, I think even in all of those, you should be doing some kind of heavy single. I do a heavy single warm up every single time I hit a session, no matter what training block I'm in. And that's not necessarily a 1 rep max. My 1 rep max right now is like 485, but I might do a warm up single up to like 420, 430, and then I do my back downs based on how that felt. I think you should be touching heavy singles, that sounds really bad, way more often than most programs suggest. So I hit my warm up heavy single and I used how that felt, both, how it feels and looking at the video, the bar speed, because sometimes it feels great and bar speed is slow. Sometimes it feels bad, but I shoot it up anyways. You got to take both into consideration and make an educated decision on what your back down set should look like, or if you need to keep climbing in your heavy singles. The way I think about it is this. If I'm a rugby player, of course I'm going to have an off season, but that doesn't mean I'm never going to touch a rugby ball. If I'm a marathon runner, of course I'm going to have an off season where I'm not running marathons every single week, or even half marathons. Maybe I'm doing like speed work. But the difference is I'm still like running, You're still doing something that's like ultra specific to the sport. So in the off season of powerlifting, going to the gym and training hard isn't enough. You should still be specific to the sport. You should still be doing heavy 1 reps and getting comfortable with that, treating that as its own separate skill. And I sound like I'm beating a dead horse because I talk about it in all my videos, but that's how much I believe in this. Is the mistake you're making is not spending enough time in heavy weight and getting really good at doing 1 rep. That's holding you back 100%, I believe. You just also need to be careful of your fatigue and load management and make sure, you're picking appropriate weight every day. Try to kill overprescription. And what I mean is, I'm not saying go into the gym and say, I'm hitting exactly 82.37% of my 1 rep max. Go based on how you feel. I hit a single, I see how it moves, and I do my back downs from there. Sometimes it's less than I did last week, but that's because I'm making more smart decisions about my load and fatigue management. This is exactly the route I chose of how I went from barely hitting 405 to now I hit 430 on any given day. It's a concept called auto-regulation. Basically, I want you to understand what are your yellow lights and your green lights for a certain training session. Have that planned every training session. If it feels slow and it's a yellow light, maybe stop there. If it's hurting and something's bad, it's a red light, consider ending the session. If it's flying and everything's great, that's your green light. Go for the higher end of your target range of what you were thinking about hitting that day. This is my own bro philosophy. And I think unless you were like in a peak block or working with a coach and you got to follow your program like it's the Bible, I'm totally a fan of taking advantage of a training session. And what I mean is I've hit a lot of PRs in my life on days I wasn't planning on doing it. And I think you have probably experienced the same. And whenever you follow a program really religiously, maybe you found yourself under training because you decided to go off program one day, hit a 1 rep max, and you're like, well, that was way freaking easier than I thought. What I would encourage you to do here and there is use the concept of carpe diem. You've got green lights in your training session. You hit 90% of your 1 rep max. And on that day, who the hell knows? It feels freaking great. It flies up. It wasn't fatiguing. You feel energized. You got that spark in your eyes and you're like, I could hit a PR today. I'm telling you, I think you should go for it. That's Gym Bro science, 100%. And maybe that's leaning into bad fatigue and load management. But I can't tell you how many times this has worked for me where I got to take it that day. Everything's lining up. I feel great. I've got 200 milligrams of caffeine. I got 9 hours of sleep. Work was feeling pretty good. Or maybe it's the opposite. Sleep wasn't great. I feel tired. I didn't eat a lot of food, but for whatever reason, I know it's there. And I've hit PRs on those kinds of days too. Now then I got to deload pretty hard, but still, carpe diem. Point number 5, and this is to me the biggest mistake people make on their road to 405, or even any day they hit a PR. This is the one almost everyone gets wrong. Most people don't fail a PR that they think they should hit, not like loading 100 more pounds than you've done. Not because they're strong enough. They fail because they're not prepared. What I mean is, if you've ever competed in powerlifting and you had a coach or followed a program, you understand the concept of deloading before your competition, tapering in the couple weeks before. You know exactly kind of when to hit your heaviest singles, 3-ish weeks out. And then logically, you probably won't hit a PR again unless you do all of those things too, right? And even like right before the meet day, you're eating like, if you did like a 24-hour weigh-in, you weigh in and boom, you go eat like 6,000 calories that night. You get a good night's rest. And the next morning, you take your pre-workout, you get a good breakfast, you hit the salts, everything's great. Boom, you just added, 15 pounds to your bench press on your 3rd attempt. All of that work, months of training, tapering, deloading, meet day preparation, was all in a line for you to finally hit a PR. That's what it takes sometimes, right? Sometimes you can hit it randomly in training like I was just talking about, but the further and further you get, the more work you have to do to prepare for your PR. As you progress, PRs will feel less random than they did in earlier training. The first time you hit 185 or 225 or 250, some of those might have felt like surprises, like I had no idea that I had that strength in me. But as you compete a lot and you train heavy all the time, you start to get a pretty good idea of exactly where you're at with very little surprises. So even if you don't compete, don't treat your PR like a normal training session. A lot of these intermediate lifters, especially beginner lifters, follow some kind of online program they found from Reddit, which no shame. I love some of those programs a lot. They're great for those kinds of people. But then, you go and test your 1 rep max at the end. You got heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. You never took a deload. You never took a break. And then when you're at maximum fatigue, then you try to PR? How does that make sense? Take your deload week and then PR. That's all I'm saying to do. Do everything you need to do to hit your PR. Get your good night's rest. Get the carbs in. Make sure your stress is in check. My iPhone just died on me, so please subscribe so I can afford a new camera to actually do this with SD cards and a better mic and all that kind of fun stuff. But for real, what I think I was saying a couple minutes ago was make sure all of that stuff is in check. If you're not treating each PR day like almost like a mini meet day, then how can you expect to hit your next PR when the last time you hit a PR, you did everything right? If your body isn't at 100%, how can you expect to perform at 100%? You just shouldn't be surprised when it doesn't happen if you didn't do all the things you did before. And that's why powerlifting can be such a frustrating sport, because if we're lucky, we might compete 2 to 3 times a year. Lately, I've been only competing like once a year, if that. Over 10 years, that's like 10 competitions. If you compete a little bit more often, that's 20, maybe 30 competitions in 10 years. That's really not a lot. And that's not a lot of opportunities to completely PR. And you're not likely to PR every single time either. Things go wrong. The way I want to end this video is, these are not just, the way this video I had in my head wasn't just like, you know, avoid these like technique mistakes and avoid these like cue mistakes. It's really mindset mistakes. And none of these alone may stop you. I know plenty of guys that, just given enough time in the gym, 10, 15, 20 years, they end up hitting really heavy weight, you know, 400, 450. And some people just naturally start benching 405 at like 14 years old. It happens. Most of us are under the bell curve of, you know, genetic gifts. I'm not talking to you if you're an outlier on that bell curve, really. But if you're like the majority of us under the bell curve, you're probably going to want to avoid the mistakes I've talked about in this video. It's a lot of mindset. And the reason I wanted to make this video is because these are the mistakes that will hold you back more so than just like really specific like cue and technique and exercise selection based decisions. Those things are definitely important. Talked about them on all my videos before, but let me know if this resonated with you. I'm really interested in your feedback. Where are you typically failing on your bench press? Is it off the chest, the mid-range, or the lockout? Where's your sticking point? Check out the video here. I talk all about that and how to tackle those. My channel really is just breaking down what actually works to get you stronger based on my own personal experience and anecdotal evidence, mixed in with a little bit of science, especially on bench. Those are the videos that seem to blow up. I make deadlift and squat videos too, and other kind of like philosophy videos based on for lifting philosophy. But I love talking about bench, so keep coming back for more bench videos because I'm gonna keep making them. And I look forward to talking to you in the next video. Take care, y'all. Again, epilogue. I'm gonna talk about in all the end of my videos. I offer online coaching now, so if you're interested in working with me, I am right now. Channel where I'm at is like less than 1,500 subscribers. I'm not even at 1,400 today, I think. So I'm a small channel. I'm dipping my toes in the water of online coaching, but if that's something you're interested in, I've had some success with some clients before. So if you're interested in working with me, I'd love to work with you. Just DM me, meathead.matt on Instagram. Take care, y'all.